This mechanism is, I call it the running man. It's quite good fun, it's quite complicated, takes a bit of tailoring. If you look at my version here, you can see there are holes and stuff, and I've got the measuring slightly wrong, so it's not perfect. Most pop-ups, you will need to make 2 or 3 attempts before you get to the final perfect version, where you iron out lengths, angles, holes, this and that. So this was my first attempt, but it's not bad, and you can see what the action is and how it's really fun. I took this design from Robert Sabuda's book, The Movable Mother Goose. It's a really fantastic book, full of really amazing pop-ups. So we're not looking at the peacock. What we're looking at is this, the Jack of Hearts. And this is the running mechanism. This has got an extra piece in it. It's got this arm of the Queen pointing at him. The movement of the arms and legs, that comes from this mechanism. The whole mechanism, if you look at it end on, you'll see that it's actually a parallelogram, and it's been cut so that you can fold little triangles into it that give you, that's the base of moving arms. Here I've got a piece pre-cut to make the parallelogram, but in this case, rather than having a small tab that sticks back underneath against the page, this has a longer tab. You're cutting into this valley fold. So I've marked where the cuts are going to be. So we fold it in half and make these 2 cuts that go almost to the edge. They want to go quite a long way up, really. There's the cuts, and then you fold back the corners. This is standard moving arm technique. You fold back these corners, so we fold those 2 back. There we are, they're all folded back. Fold them back on themselves to reinforce the creases. So having done that, now you can open it up and push these little triangles forward. These are what's going to activate the moving arms, or the legs. Right, so we've got the valley fold here, and these triangles are coming forward. That's 2 of them nicely done, and this is the 3rd one. Those are the 3 sets of little triangles that are going to move the limbs. And then on this one, when it's closed, one of the feet sticks out the bottom, so I think I got it ever so slightly low. So I might move it up slightly. With parallelograms, they go flat when the base is flat. So I'm going to put this central crease lined up the middle of the central crease of the base card. I'll just put the glue on the tabs. This one can fold behind. This one is going to go on the page. There we are. So I line up that crease with the central crease. The whole piece is flat, like that. And so when the page opens, you'll see there are the 3 little pairs of triangles that are going to move the limbs. I'll just make sure it shuts okay while we're at it. And so, yeah, there we are. That's the beginning of it. Then you stick on the body. It needs playing with. To get to this shape, I had to play around quite a bit and trim pieces off. I could probably have cut this back further, which would have meant cutting this back further. I could have probably cut this back further as well. So you could cut back the underlying structure to enable this body shape to be different. Now, when you look at this, you'll see the way these triangles work to move the arms. You'll see there's actually holes in the body, that there's arms come up from the little triangles. They come up through the holes, and then the limbs are stuck onto them. Here's the body piece. This is going to stick on like this. I've given a rough guide to where the holes are going to be. You can actually look at it like this, and the bottom of the holes needs to be just slightly below where these cuts have been made. As you can see, when I was making the other, I did some guidelines, and then when I made it, I found I was a bit off, so I've rubbed a bit out and added a bit on. So I'll just cut those out with the craft knife. Again, if you're making one of these, you'll probably need to experiment. You can experiment with the size of the holes, you can experiment slightly with the position of the holes, but as far as I can make out, this is what works. So there we are. This is going to stick on like this. So you put glue on this piece. Again, put the glue right up to the edge of the crease, stick it on like that. Make sure it shuts. Now you're going to have two arms coming up through those holes. So I've cut these, they're narrow like this. They've got a pointed end so they can fit onto the top of these two triangles. So I'll stick the first one on. That's all right. And then I still got glue on my finger from that one, so I can put glue on there. Stick that one on. So one is going to move this leg and one is going to move this arm. So before you go further, you need to shut it and make sure that it all works okay. And the danger before, I had to moderate these from my original design because they were clashing with the corner of the hole. It looks as though I've actually made the hole too high. I don't think it needs to be so tall. The width that I've got there is right, but the height that I've got is a bit too much. Now you can start sticking the limbs on. The first leg, this goes underneath. This doesn't go on one of those arms. This goes onto the top little triangle underneath. So I'll just put some glue on that. As I say, you will need to tailor the limbs as you're working on this one. I think that's probably good. Yeah, again, you can see it's actually sticking out at the bottom, so I might trim that off later. But that's the first leg. This, I think these two, I've actually made them too long, so we can trim off a bit to start with. So we don't need that much, so let's trim them down like that. Take the second leg. So you can see when the card is open, that's the position of the leg. So we need to stick it on in that position. Just have another check. It's actually going almost all the way back. So we'll stick that on there. You can see the strip is still a little bit too long, so I can cut off even more of that. Then put some glue on it. Just check that it closes down okay. Right, now let's try it. Okay, so that's so that one's working okay now. Right, so we're going to add the arm that's behind the piece. If you look at it from here, you'll see the arm actually sticks to the same little triangle as the one that's coming through the page. So I'll just put some glue on there. And stick that on there like that. When it's open, the arm is down, and then as it closes, the arm moves up. So we'll just close it and press it. And so that's that arm moving. And then the other arm, again we use this as a guide and see the position of that arm when the whole spread is open. And so that arm, the elbow is going slightly back, so that's going to be like that. I can put some glue on there. And stick that on like that. We want to make sure it's hiding the hole when the page is open. Then you shut it. Yeah, I seem to have got it now, more or less. Let's move it slightly more. Yeah, I'm happy with that now. The hole isn't showing and all the limbs are moving. As I say, you will need to play with this. When you're making it, you will need to jiggle around. You'll need to jiggle around with the shape of the body, jiggle around with the size and placing of the holes, and also jiggle around with the size and placing of the limbs. And now the last bit, we'll just put the head and hands on. I'll make this a bit smaller. Put a bit of glue on there. There we are. Make sure it closes. There's potential trouble there. The head could clash with the hand or with the arm. Seems to be okay. Maybe I'll make the arm slightly shorter. Well, this seems to be working. And then I've got a couple of hands here, so I can put them on. There's one hand, and the other hand. Right, let's check that. Seems to be fine. And now we can have a bit of fun, just hat and shoes. Kind of favour red like in the last one actually. Stick the shoe on instead. Yeah, that seems to be okay. And this other one. Seems to be okay. Now I'll just put some sort of hat on it. Well, as you can see, his fingers are sticking out the top and his toes are sticking out the bottom. So it could do with a bit of tailoring, but overall, not too bad. The Running Man.